and I'm excited to welcome you all to How to Not Suck at Personalizing Your Cold Emails. A collaborative presentation here. This is like Gucci and North Face collab. It's Startup Hypeman and Amplemarket coming to you live and direct with effect for all of y'all. Just a quick background on who we are. My name is Rajiv Nathan, aka Raj Nation. If you're not familiar with me yet, I have a company called Startup Hypeman, and over the years we've worked with companies on narrative and pitch design, so getting their pitch right, for demo calls, for raising money, for cold emails, right? Figuring out what's the right story that needs to be told for companies across 4 continents, 5 countries, and now up to 30 cities, which is pretty cool. Felipe, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Felipe. I'm head of demand generation at Amplemarket. And so normally demand generation is already a cool thing that you get to see what works and what doesn't within a normal company. But when you're talking about Amplemarket, which does lead generation and outbound all in one tool, then you have access to a lot of more data than a normal demand gen and lead gen people would. So we know what works from not only our case, but also clients across industries, across countries. And we see campaigns on a monthly basis and have really cool insights that apply on any industry and any country. So we're excited to share those with you today.
Awesome. And Philippe is my honorary hype man for today alongside me. So the crown is on you as well today.
So you are also an honorary Amplemarket fan.
Perfect.
As well.
Perfect. And we asked everyone where they're tuning in from. I'm tuning in from Chicago, Illinois, in the US. Philippe, you are where?
I'm in A Coruña, which is northwestern Spain.
That's so cool. So this is an international presentation, everybody. Real quick, I just need to pull this down for a second because my Q&A went away. I just need to bring it back and pull it to another screen so I can make sure I can see people's Q&A chat log thing. All right, so let me get this back going here. All right, friends. So that's us. So we talked about what are some of the challenges here, and maybe it's are you going to sound inauthentic? Are you gonna, is it going to take a lot of time? Are you going to over pitch yourself perhaps? And maybe use a bunch of numbers to make your company sound really good in hopes of trying to convince the other person to take a meeting with you. Here's a funny video I want you to show. It has nothing to do with cold emailing, but maybe in a way it's how things are being pitched to you. There we go. Or maybe it's how you're pitching accidentally.
You know, they say all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Small Joe, and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best at beating me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down. See, the 3-way at sacrifice, you got a 33 1/3 chance of winning. But I got a 66 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me, and he's not even going to try. So, Small Joe, you take your 33 1/3 chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning at sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning. If we used to go one-on-one and then add 66 2/3%, I got a 141 2/3 chance of winning at sacrifice. See, Joe, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
All right, so maybe that's how your emails are coming out, where you're just spouting up a bunch of numbers and talking about how you're amazing, and somehow after all that's said and done, you got 166 2/3% chance of winning or getting that customer. Let's talk about how to actually do this, right? So here's an example of an email that I got a couple months ago, and trying to use personalization, right? So the title is interesting. Saw your LinkedIn profile, right? So I'm probably going to click on that. And then let's see. Hey, Raj, I came across your profile as I was checking out Startup Hypeman. I'd like to explore potential collaboration as I see some good synergies with what you're doing. As an introduction, we're a mobile web development company. We do these things and these things. Our solutions are highly cost effective, come with flexible engagement options. If this sounds good, let me know a suitable time so we can hop on a quick call. All right. So this is an email that I'm not going to respond to. And I'm just curious if you could say in the chat, like, is this someone, is this an email that you would want to respond to if you saw this? Let's assume you are in this target market though. So use that Q&A and just say like, yes, if you would respond, or no, if you would not respond. All right. Most people are saying probably not. Oh, Tia, what's up, yo? See, you're here. Cool. So yeah, it's like kind of like fake personalization, as Kyle said. Like, it's really easy to see past it, right? Hey, they came across my profile as they were checking out my company, and then they just kind of went like straight into their stuff, right? Nothing that about checking out my profile like really connected to the email itself. And that's one of the big challenges I see with attempts at personalization, is a failure to connect with why the other person would care beyond the initial hook of like, hey, I saw this thing of yours. And that's really what we want to work on here. So I just want to cover like a mindset thing out of the gate. And if you've been on any of my other presentations before, you know, like my number one principle is think like an entertainer, okay? The reason I say this is so important is because an entertainer has one goal in mind: elicit an emotional response from the audience, make a connection with them at an emotional level. And the entertainer knows that in order to do that, they maybe need to cut lines out of their script, or they need to stick to a set list, right? And they know at the end of the day, even though they are performing, it's all about the audience at the end of the day. And so that's the mindset I really want you to adopt, is think like an entertainer when it pertains to your cold emails. So a couple formulas I want to hit you with on how we can get there and start to actually map out our emails. First, what I want you to think about is positioning, okay? So with positioning, there's this strategy I use I call it the superhero positioning strategy. And when you're thinking about how you want to attack a specific account, start here, okay? Superhero positioning strategy. The idea is you have to think of your company, your product, as a superhero. Why? Because superheroes help and save people. What does your company do? Your company helps and saves a certain set of people from something else. I'm seeing that, nope, is my screen share not showing right now? Is that what's happening right now?
I'm viewing, but I don't know.
All right, let me redo the screen share then. My bad, guys. Oh, you know why that happened? For some reason, my Mac sometimes when I go full screen on a presentation, it just like it like deletes it or something. I don't know why.
Probably old
so
Mac.
In that respect, we are going to all right, I'm just going to not go full screen for this so you can make sure so the thing does not go away. Then you're going to see my slides on the left panel. Anyways, so the idea here, if you're a superhero, is that I like to think of Batman as the best example, because Batman didn't have mythical powers. What Batman was able to do was combine access to capital with technology to serve the public good, which you tell me, does that sound like, what your company's doing? Access to capital plus technology. And when you think about Batman only shows up to save Gotham when he's needed, right? If it's like a 85-degree Fahrenheit day outside and people don't have a care in the world, they have their kids at their park, taking their dog for a walk, Batman doesn't swoop in and being like, whoa, I'm here to save you, right? Because if he did, people would get the totally like opposite and wrong impression of him. They would kind of think he's a creep, to be honest. Batman only shows up when Gotham needs saving, right? Batman shows up when Joker's blown up the hospital, when the bank has been robbed, when someone's getting mugged in the street. These are all situations where Batman comes into play. I'm going to try and go into present mode again because there's some like transitions that come up here. If it goes away again, though, just please let me know. Actually, right now, tell me, you can still see it, Philippe?
I can still see it, but I was seeing it before, probably also because I'm one of the panelists. So
okay, everyone in the chat, let me know if you can still see my screen. I just went back to full screen.
2 participants raised hands.
Okay, looks like it's good.
Yep.
Perfect, great. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so this is what calls Batman to action. And so if you think about yourself as Batman, who's a superhero, and you think about how you're gonna like construct your own messaging, think about it in the context of the superhero kind of journey thing. And that is this is what I call the positioning strategy or the superhero strategy. In order for a superhero to exist, there have to be a few things in place first. You need to have a person in distress. There needs to be a village on fire. When you have those things, a superpower can be activated. And then with that, a superhero can come in and save the day, AKA your product, your company. In business speak, what we mean is your target audience, the core problem they are experiencing, your approach to that problem, and then finally, the solution that you offer. And this is a really good exercise to go through before you ever even send an email to just figure out, where do we reside relative to our audience within this large market, okay? And if you do this first, it's gonna make writing the emails easier. From this, we can extract your elevator pitch, if you will, which then becomes a vital part of your cold email. So out of this, we create the elevator pitch, which is a formula I call que pasa. Those of you who know Spanish who are on this call, you know that que pasa means what's up in Spanish or what's happening. And that's what we want to do when we're emailing people. We just want to tell them what's up. Que pasa, P-A-S-A, problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Okay. Those of you who have seen some of my other material before, you know you've seen this formula before. We've talked about it maybe in terms of like a demo call, or we've talked about it in terms of like pitching investors, but it also applies to your cold emails, right? You can use this as part of the framework to then pitch somebody in an email. So from this, we're able to then I want to walk you through my framework for having a narrative in your emails and using personalization at the same time, okay? So we, of course, need to have a good subject line. Assuming we've got that, number one, your email is personalized with good reason. And that second half of that is important, with good reason. You'll see what I mean in the upcoming examples. Then you have a natural segue and you show that you did your homework. Then we do problem, approach, solution, followed by proof, and then a temperature gauge CTA, okay? This is my 7-step framework when I look at how do I write a cold email, a personalized email that's gonna get someone's attention and get a response. This is all about how do we stand out in the other person's inbox. So let's look at a few examples now of how this works in action with real emails. So what we're going to cover today is different points of personalization that you can leverage. So let's start with leveraging someone's LinkedIn activity, okay? You saw someone's post or you saw that they commented on someone's post. Here's an email I sent. Hey, Peter, saw that you also liked this person's post on Happy Fox scaling to 10 million. Did you catch where he said success is most indicative of their team executing on their vision? I'm asking because I clicked around your site and this seems relevant. In my convos with other companies, the CEO will tell me they're obsessed with standing out, but their sales messaging and demo calls end up being a parade of product features instead of delivering the vision. In turn, they get unfairly lumped in with their competitors, even though their brand is unique. I help growing companies scale towards their next 5, 10, 20 million goal without making product or marketing changes. Here's a quick video where I remix the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air explaining how it's done. This has worked especially well for these other companies who have unique offerings and typically multi-stakeholder deals. Seems like this is a perfect time for you. Are you interested? Okay. Now let's break down this email. Whoops. Or actually, let's look at what the response was, and then I'll go to the breakdown. So I sent this email at 5:52 p.m. He responded at 6:27 p.m. saying, I never bite on SDR emails of any outreach, but you had a nerve on a hatred I have about demos and feature battles. Let's chat. And then minutes later, he posted to LinkedIn and said, I have hundreds of SDR emails trying to LinkedIn or sending email. This is the first time I'm replying in 14 months. And what worked well? Well, he actually explains what worked well. Hey, he personalized it. He didn't use automation. If he did, he hit it well. I'll get to that in a second. He made it relevant to something I clicked on LinkedIn. He looked at our website. He hit a nerve. He made this video to explain what his email said. Okay. That's how you know you sent a good email, when someone like goes out of their way to post on their LinkedIn about how good the email was. And I see someone saying, "Hey, this looks like it's too long, but I want to challenge you on it." Because what he says works here is essentially the framework that I used. And if we break this down, like, let's look at this. So part one, we have the personalization with good reason. Hey, we both liked this person's post on this topic. But it's not just that we both liked it. It's, hey, did you catch this particular part of that post? He said success is most indicative of their team executing on their vision. Then we have the natural segue and did my homework. I'm asking because I clicked around your site and this seems relevant. Problem, approach, and solution. In my case, I use the solution as a link to a video. And then proof. Then we followed up with the temperature gauge CTA. Seems like this is a perfect time, so you prime them a little bit. Hey, seems like this is good timing. Are you interested? I like to ask for interest instead of ask for time. It's a much lower pressure ask. Gong recently released some data on asking for interest, works better than asking for time. My rationale for it is you empower the other person to make the decision, right? You give them like the ownership to say either I do want to meet with you or I don't want to meet with you, instead of assuming they do want to meet with you and then being like, when are you free, right? So you want to empower the other person to make the decision. And overall, this was a 10-sentence email, right? So I don't think that whole like 5 lines or less is really good advice. I mean, 5 lines or less makes sense if what you're saying in those 5 lines works. But I've seen a lot of 5-line emails that are quite terrible. So it's not just like if you go over 5 lines, you're screwed. It's, can you make this thing relevant to that person? And can you tell a story where every line kind of like bleeds into the next? So they kind of want to keep on reading, okay? And the funny thing that he said about, he didn't use automation. The reality is, and this is where we're talking about how we do this at scale, I did use automation. So I'm an Amplemarket user myself, and they've got the, it's personalization at scale software. So what I was able to do was through the Amplemarket extension, I was able to take this LinkedIn post that I found interesting, and then I was able to extract everyone who had liked and commented on it. I trimmed out anyone who wouldn't fit my ICP, and then I ran a campaign against that post where Peter here wasn't the only one who got this email. Other people got the same exact email, just with the company name swapped out, right? And that's how I'm able to do this one thing here of personalizing to their activity, but scale it, right? And I got several other responses from this same campaign of people wanting to take a meeting. And they got, again, the same email, which is personalized to their activity. But I didn't have to write the email 800 times over.
Rajiv, I think it could be a good time to launch the poll of, do you ask for time or do you ask for interest? When
I like that, yeah, let's do it.
So you mentioning asking for, share, let me launch the other poll. I got the poll.
While that poll's coming up, what I want to just like highlight here, and there it is. So both there. Do you typically ask for time or ask for interest when you send your emails? I want to just highlight again how if you look at that original example we showed where I got prospected, where they were like, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn. Here's what my company does, right? That's not having any sort of natural segue. This email has some type of segue into like why the LinkedIn post would even be relevant.
And about the concern of being too long, I think that's something, Rajiv, you already addressed well, but it's not something that we see in the data empirically. If you have like good content that is engaging, then there's no need to be very short if you're provoking people to read it and be engaged with the content. And a lot of the approaches that we are going to share have much higher interest ratios than other cold email campaigns. And you will not see one short approach there. So I think sometimes you have to think beyond the conception of it needs to be short to work.
Yeah. I think the idea is like, how do you be compelling? How do you be interesting? And how do you stand out, right?
Absolutely.
One other thing I want to highlight here is like the importance of like the first line of your email. So, because that's what's going to show up in their preview window of their inbox. If you're on mobile, like the first 3 words will show up. If you are on desktop, maybe the first sentence will show up. So what this person's seeing is subject line and then, hey, Peter, saw you also liked, and it's probably going to say ... in their email preview. So that's something that's going to make someone think, well, where, like, what is the rest of that sentence going to say? Right? It's not, hey, Peter, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Raj, right? Those are the ones that you can just sniff out a cold email right away. And Brooke over here said that their team's best performing cold emails are longer than 5 lines. And then, yeah, Pedro, you're right. If the sentences are short and not text blocks, he says up to 10 sentences are fine. Our poll here, we're split down the middle. Look at this. Half of you are asking for time. Half of you are asking for interest. That's crazy. Again, there is some data now that shows that interest works better. My just own anecdotal like idea behind it, my own philosophy behind it is I want to empower the other person to make the decision. And in that kind of a dynamic, you want them to feel like they have control over the situation. I will say, once you get later on in a sequence, then I'll ask for time, but up front, I ask for interest. All right, let's move on here. I got a few more examples to go, and then I'll flip it over to Philippe's examples. So let's look at leveraging your LinkedIn activity and like what's in their bio. Now, those of you who thought long, you're gonna like be flabbergasted at how long this email is. All right. I'm only going to highlight a couple things here. You can read through it. You can skim through it yourself. But the opening, the title here, the subject, Kanye, SoundCloud rappers, and hummus. Those are 3 things that were in this person's bio. Hey, thanks again for commenting on my Kanye homecoming post the other week. I loved his first 3 albums in dark fantasy. Everything else hasn't really been my cup of tea. Don't hate me for that. I saw you launch a few SoundCloud rappers back in your day. That was in the person's bio. Hey, I'm a rapper myself. Here's a not cheesy, actually legitimate rap I made about sex. Anyway, if you like that post, your team will probably find this guide super helpful. And then I go into my pitch. Hey, blank has nearly doubled in size over the last year. I figure it's a timely read. Problem, approach, solution, right? So with this email, I just want to focus on this first part here. Personalized with good reason at the top. And then natural segue and did my homework. Like, hey, I'm sharing this with you because I saw your company has doubled in size over the last year, so it's a timely read. All right. And then at the end, the temperature gauge CTA and priming. Like why does it make sense to have this meeting now? Or why does it make sense to reply now? Your team is still small and you have an awesome head start having already created the SDR playbook, which this was in this person's bio. And then he also said he makes hummus a part of their diet plan. So that's why I have that there. So we might be a good fit as well. It would be good to discuss. Are you interested? Right? Prime them for why it would make sense and why it would make sense now. Now, this is an example, like obviously you can only do this to one specific person. I can't do Kanye, SoundCloud rappers, and hummus for everybody. But Philippe's going to show you later how you can actually take bio information and still be able to do it at scale. And this one was, how many sentences was that? 15 sentences. But every sentence kind of makes you want to read the next sentence. And if we look at the response, they replied to me on LinkedIn. You win email of the year. That is fantastic prospecting. I will bite. I'm going to unpack this guide and I'll get back to you for a demo in a day or 2 or later this week. Right? An 18-sentence email was email of the year. So don't think that just because you're writing a long email that automatically it's a bad email. Length does not matter so much if what you're saying is interesting to the other person. And if you can write in a sequential format, following that framework I showed you. Let's talk about leveraging engaging with your content. Let's say you had an article you put on LinkedIn or like an ebook or something like that. The reason I'm showing you this one in particular is because think about like when you have someone who's like downloaded your white paper or done something where like it indicates they have some kind of interest. Where I see most companies go wrong here is they They think just because someone has has downloaded the ebook or the white paper or whatever it might be, that automatically that person wants to meet with you. Because like I'll download people's material and then I'll get an email a couple days later being like, hey, saw you downloaded our ebook. Here's what our company does. When would be a good time to learn about your situation at your company? And just because I downloaded the ebook doesn't mean I'm automatically like a viable potential customer. You still have to like convince me, but you have that as leverage to be able to convince me. So I wrote a LinkedIn article a couple of years ago, which then led to downloading an ebook. This person downloaded the ebook and commented on the LinkedIn post about how they had circulated the ebook with their team internally. It's a long email, right? Thanks again for reading my guide on the X2Y paradox and for distributing it to your team. I'm happy to hear it's making the rounds at Blueboard. Sounds like it started some healthy discussion there, which is really the best outcome of absorbing content. So we open with that personalization with good reason. Hey, I took some time this morning to look more through Blueboard. I really like what you have. I mean, for a baseball fan like me, how sweet would it be to go to a World Series game? Natural segue, and did my homework. And then my problem statement here is expanded across what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, all one sentence each. And then from there, I'd go into the approach and the solution, which then allows me to walk into the proof and then say, hey, are you interested? Another thing I want to point out here is when it comes to proof, and actually that ebook that I referenced here, the X to Y paradox, speaks entirely to this concept. You do not need to, and you probably shouldn't, throw down like amazing ROI results. Don't throw down like your best case studies and say, hey, we helped so-and-so company save cost by 92% over the last year. The reason you want to avoid doing that is because it is too far of a leap. So the super condensed version of what's in that ebook that I referenced, the person you're prospecting is in a state of X right now, and what you present to them with that 92% decrease in cost is a state of Y, like variable Y. There's too much of a gap between X and Y. So they won't be able to see themselves as being able to make that leap themselves. Or they'll say, you know what, our company is so unique, this would never work for us. That's where it's like, talk more about like, hey, here's something we did with another company that is similar to yours, but you don't necessarily have to show the result, right? In this case, hey, I've also worked with a SaaS company in employee engagement already this year, so I'm pretty familiar with the landscape, right? And that's enough of proof. And a lot of times can be enough of proof. We're working with other companies, these other companies in your industry, right? You don't have to throw out your best example, and you probably should. If you do feel compelled to show a result, I would show what I call the X+1 effect. Show an example of incremental gain. Say, hey, so-and-so just started using our product and they've had these wins recently, which has been cool. Because then the person can visualize they can actually see themselves making that kind of step forward instead of the leap of a 92% savings or whatever that might be. Okay. 19 sentences long. And I sent one follow-up email because they didn't reply right away. I think 3 or 4 days later, I said, bumping this to the top of your inbox, smiley face. Interested to have a chat? That's the one they replied to. Sure, I'm interested. Looping in my co-founder, Kevin, who runs the growth side of our business. Do you have ability to chat? And see, like, they tell me when they're free instead of me slapping a calendar link in their face, right? I think it's great if they say, yeah, let's meet. And then you can reply and say, awesome, here's my link to book a meeting. But I'm not opening the original email with, hey, let's meet, here's my calendar link, right? I don't think you should be slapping people with that calendar link.
Also, I've seen even more abrupt, which is directly sending you a calendar link, not link, an event. And I think that is even worse. I don't think anyone.
God, yeah.
Oh, that just popped up. I'm sure going to attend.
Yeah. Pedro, the problem with +5 or +10 cents is that if you check the email or the LinkedIn message on the smartphone, if you use more than 5 plus, it'll be too long, don't read. Yes and no, right? I'm very intentional that every paragraph is like 1 to 2 sentences. And then again, it's written in a sequential fashion that gets the person to the next statement or the next paragraph. So like, yeah, if it's 19 sentences and the 19 sentences are all about my offering, of course, the person's not going to read it. But if you look at this, like, it's not until what, sentence like 14 that we even, actually, wait, yeah, here. Down here, sentence 1, 19, 18, 17, 16, yeah. Sentence 15 here is finally when I say, here's what I do. The first 14 are all about them. And that's one of the keys here is 50% of the email needs to be about them, which I'll touch on that point later on. All right, let me move this along and get to, I just want to show you an example of another company executing this as well, just so you know, it's not just my own ability to do this personally. And this is actually, Blueboard became a customer of mine, and we ended up doing some cold email work on their stuff. And this is an email that was sent April of last year, so like the height of the COVID scare, I would say. And this is an example of leveraging your relationship with their brand, like AKA like poster childing yourself, like, hey, I'm a user of your product, that kind of thing. And this is what Tim from their company put together for a company called Zwift. Hi, I hope this finds you safe and healthy. Aren't you excited for the day this greeting is in the top of every email? April of last year, people were still okay with saying, hope you're safe at the beginning of an email. Full disclosure, I'm not a cyclist, I dread it, but I am a runner and a fellow Zwifter on my treadmill in my garage. Thank you for what you and your team are doing right now to help me and others looking to stay active, engaged, and connected. I can only imagine how busy things have been as your team works around the clock to meet the heavy demand for your existing services, and of course, ensuring the safety and well-being of your people. So we've got the personalized with good reason. We've got the segue. Then we go to the problem. Hey, I've been talking with HR and people leaders about this thing. They have a sharp increase in demand, just like you. They have a sharp increase in demand. They've told me they're worried that with the high expectations also high, the staff will get burned out, especially those balancing kids at home and a partner down the hall in the health. They want to ensure their people feel more safe, secure, and valued by recognizing them in a meaningful way. And I also noted this specific thing about your organization. We are helping partners do exactly that with experiential recognition approach. Then we go into our solution. Here are some other companies who have worked with us. And then that temperature gauge and the priming CTA. Since Zwift employees are stepping up their game right now, I thought this would be relevant and helpful to you. Are you interested? And if you want to check us out, we are Blueboard, right? I don't have the screenshot from it because it wasn't my exact email, but what they sent me and what he told me in Slack was that the person replied like 3 days later being like, hey, thanks for sending this. We want to meet. I'm just trying to corral everyone who would be important to have this meeting with you. So this email works so effectively that this person inherently knew that they would be best served if they had all the decision makers or all the stakeholders on a first call with him because of how it's contextualized to the situation. Hey, you have that upfront personalization. This is a poster child technique. I'm a user of your product. Here's what it's helped me with. Here's what I feel like you're probably going through because others are going through it. Here's how we solve that. And here's why it would make sense to meet right now. Okay. And you'll see the subject line on this. First name, something for Zwifters to look forward to. 18 sentences long. Philippe,
yeah,
I'll pass it over to you, my man.
Absolutely. Let me rob the screen sharing. And first, I did not know before the Rajiv's framework, but it aligns a lot with what we think and see on the data that works. And so basically you need personalization, otherwise you're going to be stuck in the middle of the crowd of bad emails. Let me put this sharing. It's view present. Oh, sorry. You're here. So should be working now. Oh, I'm still on yours. Sorry, my bad. Let me escape and go back to the correct slide and hit present. So we did not know Rajiv's framework, but we believe extremely in personalization and see on the data that it works. I'm sure if you apply personalization that is meaningful, you'll get a lot better results than if you're not doing that. And what we did was essentially try to create a framework that allows it to personalize at scale. Because one of the examples that Rajiv shared was a brilliant email. So, and if you can connect all of those dots, then it's engaging content that people cannot escape and will like to read and will answer it. But the difficulty is, how do you do it at scale with enough people that you're, I think you're still here. Yeah. So, so that you can generate enough business and hit the quota that you want. So basically what we decided was to create a framework that helps us do it at scale. And the way to do it is try to find 3 common things that are easy to then create an approach that is very personalized. And the first thing is, are you targeting a relevant audience? And that is, are you finding someone that would benefit from your product? Do they share any common interests? Do they have anything in common that they can share and you can start a conversation with? Secondly, do you have a relevant conversation for this specific audience? So you have—
Philippe, 1 second. Someone said they only see a black screen. I just want to confirm. Can everyone see Philip's screen?
Oh. Are you seeing it correctly, Rajiv?
I can see yours, yeah. Patrick, you said you cannot. Others can see the screen, yes. Okay, we're good.
Okay, and so what I was saying is, you found a lot of people that are relevant for your product, tool, SaaS product, whatever you're selling. Then you have all these data points. Try to connect it with a relevant message that they can engage with, and then send at the relevant time. And so there are indications and tips that can guide you if the people are searching for a kind of tool or not. And you should leverage all of those to engage the right people at the right time with the correct message. And so what we are going to share today is, sorry, yeah, it takes a little bit. We're going to share today 2 approaches of personalization at scale, but we are very public on our approaches and what works. And we have on our blog 9 more B2B lead generation strategies that you can check, that you can do at scale, that are highly personalized. And you can just go to our blog and feel free to copy us. So the first one that we're going to address is leveraging promotions and job changes. So you have to understand the concept here. So basically, what we are going to do is address people that have recently changed jobs. So a lot of you have Sales Navigator and might have noticed this specific tab, which is people that have changed jobs in the past 90 days. I saw some Amplemarket users as well. This is also possible within the tool. So you can see either on Sales Navigator or within Amplemarket, people that have recently changed. And why is this relevant? Basically, when you're looking at decision makers, and I'm talking VP, directors, heads that have recently changed jobs, this is exactly the moment where they are going to make changes. To put into context, this would be like when the King Ferdinand and King Isabella of Spain, let me check. Yeah, it was King Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain wanted to leave their mark on the world. And basically Columbus knocked on the door. He was knocking at the right time. They had the money, they wanted to leave their mark on the world. And so that was the precise moment to approach them. It's very much the same thing when you're approaching about your product to decision makers, but at a smaller scale, obviously. But when you approach a VP that is now promoted, likely he is going to want to make changes on the organization he has just taken over. And so that is first relevant audience. Secondly, you want to send a relevant message. So you just gather that these people who have recently been promoted fit your ICP. So it's both the perfect audience and the perfect time. And you're going to send them a generic message. That would be a complete waste of valuable space. Basically, Columbus, when he addressed King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, probably didn't say anything generic. He wanted to engage them. And so first things is try to create a very relevant message. And here I'm going to borrow Rajiv's framework. And first thing is you need a killer subject line. I think it's not on the framework, but Rajiv added to it. And it's the first thing to get your email open. And the second part is you have all these data points. Let's use them for personalization with good reason. So I see a lot of people leveraging the recently changed 90 days on sales nav, but then send a generic pitch. I mean, this person just got promoted to VP. Send them a high five. Like, I was going through LinkedIn, notice your new role, congrats. 2020 was a tough year, so it's great to see people doing well. Then how do you connect this to your own message? And then just do some natural sag and did my homework when checking the person. So what we see is people that have changed jobs, in particular in our industry, they want to shake things up. So make the exact same type of conversation. I was curious if this role change was also an opportunity for you to reevaluate the sales stack for your team as we start the new year. This is something that we see a lot of people doing. Am I making the right assumption? I think the most important part of the email is the starting, because that's when you engage with people. And then I think you should go to something similar to what Rajiv showed in terms of framework, but first you need to grab their attention. And that's where you need to leverage the data points. You need to connect at the right time and with the right message.
One other thing, if I can add there, if you can just go back to that for a second.
Absolutely.
I think another important thing that I don't even know if perhaps you're actively doing it or even just subconsciously doing it, that's really important here. Like, so that K-PASA framework we went over earlier, you're already doing it with the natural segue here, but what's really important when you talk about problem, or in this case, your segue, is that you don't accuse the person you're reaching out to of having the problem. You speak about the problem and I call it, you diffuse it across the market. Meaning you say, here's what other people are doing, right? Like other people like you. I've talked to other people, I've talked to other VPs who have said this, right? Now you're not a random person emailing them and saying, hey, you have this problem. You stink at your job, right? Instead, it's, hey, I'm not saying you have this problem. I'm saying other people have this problem and you're kind of like them. So maybe you have it too, right? And like what you said here, I'm curious if this role change was an opportunity. This is something I see when a lot of people move into your type of role, right? Am I making the right assumption? So you did it in the segue there, which is good. But this idea of like diffusing the issue or diffusing the problem across the market, it'll be received more favorably because now you're not coming in with accusations, you're coming in with support.
Absolutely. And when you were presenting, people were asking, but how many hyper-personalized emails can you send a week? So if you have this search within SalesNav, you have 1,500 people that would fit your profile. There's no reason for you not to be hyper-personalized at scale. You just need to fit the people and the message that align with that criteria. And here are some of the replies that we got from there, all from this cadence. And we have many more of this. Is just plain, happy to chat. Give me a call 9:30 this morning. Nice email, original and engage me. Let me have a link to your product, but I'll have to tell you. And so I'll have to tell you, you have done a lot of work in this area over the past 12 months, so feel free. We are mainly started. However, happy to see if we have any gaps. And then we connected and saw if there was an opportunity, and it's moving forward. But if you don't get this first initial engagement, probably a person that's already sorted would not jump into a conversation. Hey Cole, like your approach, let's do it. Speak Monday. And so why is this working and how are we doing it at scale? Again, I'll reiterate one more time. So the relevant people that we found, that's the relevant audience, all decision makers that have recently changed, a relevant message. It's something that's tailored for this niche of people, and then it's at the relevant time because they've just now changed to a new role and are likely looking for tools.
One question we've got here, Philippe, if you want to answer.
Let me scroll down.
Do you see any difference in engagement between using a subject line that matches the body of the email versus using a clickbaity subject line to get them to open at any cost?
So we would have to do a difficult split of what is clickbaity and what is not. But I think I would always go for a more clickbaity open subject line, because you get them to open and read a few more lines.
That's an interesting response. So
we would have to look very thoroughly on the data on that, but I don't think there is like a negative impression of you clickbait me and now I'm not going to answer.
I would say, so my thing is like, it's clickbait if the subject line has nothing to do with the email. But it's not clickbait if it's an interesting subject line and it has to do with the email. There was an example I sent out in my newsletter that I got prospected, a while back.
I think someone was like, also is clickbaity, but has to do with the email. The next one I'm going to present.
Yeah, go for it. Okay.
That you had on Kanye West was also clickbaity, but then had to do with the email.
Yeah, the email contained that content. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions here? Nope. Second approach that you can do at scale and that allows for personalization is leveraging hobbies. So everyone is very public on social media about what they like, what they don't like. Those pieces are up for grabs for anyone to start a connection. And so on my case, I think I changed that. Since the beginning of pandemic, I've started to make pizza, and that's public on my LinkedIn, that's public on my other social media. A lot of people can leverage that. And I decided, why not to try and make a cold emailing work with one of my hobbies? And before I show you that, I want to put a poll. Where is the poll now that I'm on Zoom?
This is the pizza we were referencing, everybody. If you saw my LinkedIn post or my newsletter and I said pizza on Wednesday, now you've got that delivery here. And we got a poll for you. Pineapple on your pizza, yes or no? Where do you stand on this very important life decision?
Exactly. And Luca was also here today, already lectured me that as an Italian, you should not put pineapple on pizza. I absolutely love it. So I'm all for pineapple on pizza, but curious to see the results as well. Let me check.
Luca saying never.
So we are almost finished. Let me put this here and go back to the presentation.
Do we have the results?
I mean, we have almost everyone voted. The majority are saying no. 63% are for no in pizza, pineapple on pizza.
I am pro pineapple if it's got ham and or bacon on it and like nothing else. I said it.
That's my perfect combination. It's bacon and pineapple, and I absolutely love it. Okay,
let's bang through this last example and then we'll take some final questions.
So share the results. Basically 63%. Whoa,
nice.
So this is, I like pizza, I like cooking. How do I scale this? So basically you can go to LinkedIn and this is, I changed the name of this person, but John Doe is a VP of sales. And if you go to his description, he says, in my free time, my hobbies include bicycle, fishing, and cooking. And so how do we link this up to your content? So first, you have the audience. You have this John Doe, who is a VP of sales. Message, we'll get to it, but basically the hook and then this natural segue will leverage this cooking that he's mentioning. The timing here was just the fact that I just noticed his profile, and as such, I'm reaching now. And so here's what this email looked like. This, I think, was my best performing campaign. It had a 20% meeting booked ratio. I'd never seen this before. And after this, I started doing other hobbies. And I think you can use LinkedIn for this. You can use Amplemarket's keywords to find them. But basically, you can scale these very tailored approaches. First thing is a clickbaity killer subject line. So it's cooking and Amplemarket. And then you go through the personalization with good reason. Hi, first name. I happen to come across your profile and I noticed that you love cooking. So just this, and you just made a connection. And now what you want is natural sag and did my homework. Additionally, what I like to do is to make it engaging. So what I did here is, as a cooking aficionado myself, I know that 80% of the success comes from the best ingredients and best tools. Imagine pizza. I started making pizza at home at the beginning of March and wasn't that good. But since then, I bought 2 stones for my oven that you can see here, and bought the 25 kilos of top quality Italian flour and pizza peel, which you can also see the pizza peel here, but not the 25 kilo bag. And the result is incredible. I'm happy to share my setup and the ingredients. Okay, this has nothing to do with Amplemarket, but then what you want to do is make a natural seg, which is, well, the same is true in sales. You can get a completely different result if you add the right tools and processes. Then I go through the problem, approach, and solution and put it at temperature gauging CTA. So what we're doing here is using all the data points in your message. The message is, for some standards that we saw in the chat today, extremely long, so 13 sentences, but it was my best campaign ever. And I can also show you one of the results. Philippe, I just so happened to be checking my email, and I really have to commend you on your customized approach. I too have also been able to make my pizza better this year. 00 flour is key for sure. I will say up front that my budget's not open, but then we set up a meeting. The meeting went well, and it might be a potential customer. And this basically is exactly the same framework. How do I scale personalization? And it's audience, message, and then timing.
The cool thing with this, that, you know, if you're not like, if you're seeing like, well, how does this scale, is, you know, again, I use Amplemarket as well. Obviously, Amplemarket uses Amplemarket. But what we're able to do is like do a search of, hey, anyone in this certain criteria who uses the word cooking in their profile, let's pull a list of those people, and then that same email that you're sending, you're saying you like that gets sent to any of those people you put into that profile, if they have cooking in their profile and matches, you know, like VP of sales or whoever you're targeting.
Exactly. We're a bit short on time. Passing it to you, Rajiv.
Yeah, let's bang through the last couple of things here, and then I'm happy to stick around for a couple extra minutes if you have some extra questions. And if you haven't seen, there were some questions that I just answered via text, and they move into the answered section of the Q&A. So if you want to see what those are, you can go there. So let's bring this back to my stuff. One sec. All right. Oh wait, screen share's got to be up. So just some like final like things to keep in mind here, what I call like director's cuts with this approach. Number one, beat Batman and save Gotham. Okay. Understand it's about them and their needs, not about you and your amazing offering, at least at the start. The email is 50% or more about them, right? If you're going to take on this approach, it's not an 18 sentence email about your company. It's more than half of it is about them. Use 1 to 2 sentence paragraphs. Don't write thick blocks. Think about readability of it. Write like you're emailing a friend. Think about how you might talk or how you might type to a friend. don't waste your time on your name. What I mean is I see a lot of emails that will open, they'll have some kind of opening and then they'll be like, my name is Raj with Startup Hypeman. Like, you know what? Your name's already in the send field and it's also in the signature and probably written twice in the signature. So like, you don't need to waste a line like that. If anything, like I'll do my whole value prop and everything. And then the very end of the email will close with like, like, thanks, Raj from Startup Hypeman. And that's where I'll put both my name and the company's name. Bonus points when you do this K-PASA approach within the framework, if your approach or solution also removes their first objection. So what you saw with that, that first example that I showed you back up here. Hey, I help growing companies do this thing, parentheses, without making product or marketing changes. So like think through like, what's like one of the first objections that a person might have to saying yes to this. And if you can address that there, then you're in better footing. So whatever that might be for you, like what, talk to your salespeople, talk to your CS team. What's one of the first things people reject or say no to in their head because they want to say, well, this wouldn't work for me, right? I don't know how many people are doing this, but like when you link to your company, it doesn't have to be a link to your homepage. I'm putting this here because I used to do this and I realized, well, why not just link them to like a case study, right? When you say like, Raj from Startup Hypeman, if you have that part hyperlinked, link them to whatever page you want to send them to that would help get your point across better. So maybe it's not your homepage, maybe it's a case study, maybe it's a video about something, related. Proof, I mentioned this earlier. It doesn't necessarily have to be like even like other companies you've worked with, other clients you've worked with. Proof could even be why a meeting makes sense. For those of you who are attending this, who are maybe earlier stage, who don't have a lofty customer roster yet, this is where proof comes in. Instead of saying, hey, we've worked with all these big names already, just have proof be why it would make sense to talk with you. I saw you're doing these 3 things, and because we're this, figured it would make sense to reach out. Are you interested? And then I just want to clarify here, this K-PASA approach built within the framework, it works best when it's paired with personalization. It works good with light customization, and it only works, from what I've tested, it really only works average in mass campaigns. And I think talking about length, it does not, this format does not play well when it's a mass templated email because it's too long and it doesn't have any personal hook to it. So in order to use this effectively, it's got to have that personalization or customization element to it. Otherwise, it's just not going to play well because it's a mass email and there's nothing that's getting someone to want to keep reading, and it's too long. When you do these things effectively, here's what you can expect. The prospect responds with enthusiasm, like you saw with our screenshots that we both showed you. The prospect tells you what they want. Oftentimes they will say, hey, yeah, yes, can you meet on Friday or something like that. Oftentimes they loop in the right contacts from the start, like you saw with the Blueboard example, where he said looping in my co-founder, Kevin, or like you saw with Blueboard's own AE sending an email where the Zwifter said, get back to you in a couple of days. I just want to get the right people involved for this meeting. And then they also end up becoming, in a lot of cases, your most prepared buyer because the way you've set up the scenario makes so much sense that if they're saying yes to that, there's a pretty decent shot that provided they have budget, they're a very qualified customer, okay? And I do want to say this though, there are other ways you can email. I'm not saying this is the only way to email, because if this is the only thing you do, I don't recommend that, right? Have multiple ways of going about this. This is one really good way. But even if you do this, it might still not work, okay? And you might get a response like what I got last summer from using this exact approach. And actually, it was that same email cadence that you saw that we did with Peter up front. This other person replied saying, I sold my company and I work full-time to help re-elect the president. MAGA, bitch. I had no idea what to do with that response, but that is a screenshot of an actual email email response that I got to this personalized cold email sequence.
I think
we're happy to take
100% of the time, so it's
yeah, so it's just very strange in that sense. That was, and I was dying laughing that was a response to an email. So that's what we've got for you today. Ask more questions in the chat. We'll stick around for a few more minutes. Yes, the recording is being sent. Yes, you'll get a PDF of all of these slides. Here's our contact information. And you know, it's a webinar, so you'll get email cadences from us afterwards, just because that's how webinars work. But please reach out to us. This is our email. Please connect with both of us on LinkedIn. We're very active on LinkedIn. And if you like podcasts, I've got a cool one there. Philippe, any parting thought you have for them?
I mean, I think it's have a lot of tricks and tools that you use. There's, for example, we have 11 strategies that we do on a recurring basis. I mean, don't be a one size fits all type of campaign, and that won't work. And the more you test, the more you'll know. What we see in our data is personalization works, even if you're touching less people. So that's the main message I wanted people to have today, is that you don't have to do 10,000 emails a month if you only need 20 meetings. You can do a lot less and have much better engagement, opens, replies, and still get your message across.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Like, I think everyone's worried about, like, well, how do I get out so many emails if I'm taking more time to write them? But if you're taking more time to write them and you execute this successfully, you know, like you said, like you're getting like 20 meetings off of one campaign that's not even sent to that many people. So you can actually reduce the volume and make your life easier and actually more enjoyable in the process, because you're writing emails that are actually fun to write. Adam Rowles asked, have you tried using department size filter on SalesNav to identify companies that might need help and then personalize? Example, I can see you only have 2 salespeople / 2 marketing people and may need help. Yes, I have definitely done that before. It's actually one of the things that I filter on from the gate. Like, I gotta know, like, how big is their sales team? How big is their marketing team? So yes, I definitely do that. It's kind of up to you if you want to get as specific as saying, I see you only have 2 people or 2 this. Another way you could think about that is, how do you say that in a more empowering way, as opposed to almost like a discriminatory is not the right word, but like a discriminatory way. Like, I can see you only have this many people versus I see your team is still growing, right? The second version is a way that empowers them, instead of like being like, hey, you're still small, so you kind of suck, you know, right? And just think about, I'm not saying you're saying that, but like, think of their perception of how they might read that. Felipe, did you have I think it's
so we also use that one, and next to that filter there's another interesting one that people sometimes forget, which is how much is that department growing. And for example, for us, that's very relevant. They need to have at least a couple of people in sales, but it's even better if their sales team is growing, and you can then have even more data points that you can use in your message, and that make the message even more relevant for them. So I definitely encourage sales navigators and all their searches to also be included in the message that you're sending.
Yeah. Let's see here. We've got Marjan asked, how could this messaging be used for B2C, if at all? So I'll answer that in 2 ways. Number one, the K-PASA formula just on its own is a perfect way to describe your product B2C. Like, if it's an app, like app store description. If it's, I don't know, a subscription product of some kind, like the homepage copy that like, that's your value prop, right? So at minimum, your K-PASA formula is perfect to give like the explanation of what your product does and how it helps people. Regarding how you could use it within emails, this approach probably, like, it wouldn't really work if you were sending out like B2C newsletters. It's just not the nature of how that's set up. I do think, though, you could apply this philosophy if in a B2C company, you're expanding into a B2B side of it, or at least trying to establish some like distribution partnerships of your product. This could work really effectively.
So Ian's question, how many well-researched personalized emails do you think it's attainable to target per day? I mean, I think a lot of them, and that's what we do. We have 1 sales rep, and we do on average 100 highly personalized emails per day. This is just 1 person. What you need to do is to leverage the right tools to make it personalizable at scale. So when we target people that have recently changed and are now VPs of sales, we're not writing each of those individually, but we're putting a buck of people that fit within this very relevant message and audience. So I think a lot more, the correct answer is a lot more than what people are currently doing.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say to that, like Philippe showed and like that I showed with that initial one, those are like he even said he could not tell if it was automated or not, or he said it was not automated, or if it was hidden well. Right? That's a pretty well personalized email that honestly, I'll be honest, I spent probably, I don't know, an hour writing and rewriting that email to make sure it was right. But then I could hit send and know it was going to go out to whatever it was. Like, I think it was like 100 people a day or 50 people a day or something like that. Right. So, or I'm trying to think of how many people replied to that specific post. It was probably like 300 people had replied to that post. So I just sent like 50 a day to everyone on that post. The other ones I showed you, like with like the Blue Board example, where I talked about like how they downloaded the ebook and they, you know, here's what I noticed about their company. That's one where honestly, in my head, I'm like, I went into that being like, this is a company I for sure know I can help, and I effing want to work with them. So I made a conscious decision, and I didn't even have Amplemarket at that time, so it's not like I could. This is 2 years ago. I made a conscious decision to say, I am going to write this and send it from my, you know, my business Gmail account, not from an email sender, because I want to make this like effing perfect. And so there are cases where you may take that onus upon yourself to say, this is a highly strategic account. I don't want to put them in a cadence. I want to take the time to write it specifically for them because I want to, as best as possible, increase my chances, right? And so I definitely do that as well. Someone else asked, in a cold email cadence, is it okay for the first email to be content heavy?
I mean, here it depends what content heavy means. If it's images and videos, what I'm going to say, and that would give you a whole different webinar, is it will hurt your deliverability, and don't do it. If it's text, then it's what we just showed. You can send very long emails that make sense.
Yeah. One example of content, like for me, would be like my Fresh Prince remix video. That's technically content, right?
Yeah.
And I will link to that. And actually that becomes like my solution technically in some emails where I just link out to the video. I have used imagery before, but you're right. It does tend to kill deliverability rates. So yeah. I try to hold off on that. And sometimes I'll be like, you know, you might want to look at, perhaps as part of the personalization, hey, you know, you commented on this post. Here's another resource that you might find helpful on this same topic. And then, you know, you segue out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think? I think we've answered it all.
Yeah, I think it's all done now. It was awesome. A very good
well,
session.
Hey, everybody who's still on here. Yeah, thank you guys for joining. Apologies, we went a little bit over time, but I hope it was valuable to you. If you got follow-up questions, just you have our contact information here. And we will look forward to seeing you guys kick some ass.
Yeah, hopefully you adopt these two frameworks that we shared.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, yeah, guys, remember, think like an entertainer, and remember, quality trumps quantity. And those are our two takeaways.
Absolutely. So let's end this and see you next time. Bye-bye.